Generative Design Mindset. In this video, we'll explain the generative design mindset. One of the biggest problems facing users making the transition to a generative workflow is understanding the shift in mindset. Looking at this example, we have a component that needs to be mounted to a wall. Most users can come up with an idea right away and begin modeling. Our history in design and engineering drives what the end result looks like. We understand how we need to manufacture the part and what resources we have available, and what works and what doesn't work from our own history and design. While making the shift to generative design, we need to think less about design and more about constraints. One of the key concepts to making the most of generative design is understanding the negative regions of your design. Things like bolt head clearances, tool access, and movements of mechanical parts. We take these into account on traditional designs, but only because we're working one feature at a time. With generative design, we need to build all that information in from the start. Some of the key items that are needed in a generative workflow. Preserve regions, which are the areas that we're going to keep in a design. These are things like mounting bosses, and keep in mind that these should be simplified as details such as threads can be added later. Obstacle regions will dictate areas that are off limits for a build. These include clearance for bolts, heads, and sockets to access those bolts. Constraints and loads, which can include multiple load cases to cover the entire use case of a design. Materials, which can involve up to 7 material choices that will be generated at the same time, giving you the ability to see how material choice will affect the overall design. Goals such as minimizing mass or maximizing stiffness. And manufacturing methods. This is an area that people often overlook because most of these images floating around are of organic looking designs, but you get to describe how you want the part to be made. You can use 3 or 5 axis machining, additive, or unrestricted. There are also other options that you can choose, such as casting or 2-axis cutting. And you can choose any of these options, letting Fusion 360 know all the parameters it has to work with. Once all the information is built into a study, you are ready to generate outcomes. The amount of time this takes varies on the complexity of your design, the load conditions, material choices, and manufacturing methods, as well as the current bandwidth of the services used to calculate those results. So, as you begin learning about generative design, you need to shift your mindset to make use of these new tools.